always had a resistance to it. It sounded like a bunch of fairies dancing, you know, on something. I remember hearing that and thinking, I can't play that. That's too delicate. It's like it's the right hand on the piano. It's like, you know, boom, boom. No, it was too tinkly, and I was like, and Chris played it part on this demo, so I'm learning it, and I'm like, I love arpeggios, and all our early stuff was writing arpeggios, and these are like little arpeggio triplets, and I'm like, I can't do it like this with the Leslie and really clean sound. It was just too delicate. You know, I'm gonna break this. I can't do this. And I to this day I can't remember. According to Adam Casper, I'm on that. I'm on the intro of the tracking. But I think Chris. I think I said, "Why don't you play this, and I'll play the distorted guitar and come in on the verses." So I can hear me on the choruses and the bridges and stuff because I changed a few things that Chris had written. I moved some of the chords around to make them sound a little bit more sunset-like.
And you play this insane solo on there.
And then the weird solo and part of, yeah. And then there's the second solo, but it's not really a solo. It's me sort of accenting the vocals. So I know this for a fact, though. That slide at the beginning, that's Chris. Neither of us knew how to play slide, and I was able to mute the strings other than the ones that I'm sliding on. I can mute them with my right hand. Chris couldn't do either, so he took all the strings off except for the one string. So it's just there's the one string, and he just went because that's one of the difficulties of playing slide is to making sure that you're not sounding the whole damn thing. I was able to do that with my right hand and not the left, and so I know that I remember that. I remember watching him would just take one string on the guitar and just play that.
When he wrote that song, did he come in and play the demo for you guys?
Yes, and it's almost the exact same response for that we had with "Smells Like Teen Spirit." We played that, and Matt heard it, and he said, "Oh yeah, that's a hit," and it was obvious to everyone that this thing it was obvious to me, and still there's that resistance. It's like loud guitars, you know, distortion, craziness, you know, and you hear that, it's like, oh yeah.
Black Hole Sun was the result of a conversation that I had with Chris, actually, because he'd sent a bunch of demos at that point, and I realized that he was starting to go off into the weeds. Like they were sounding like second-rate Soundgarden songs, and obviously his worst stuff is still better than a lot of stuff that people are doing nowadays.
Right.
But still, it wasn't up to par to what I felt we needed on this record. So I called him up and I spoke to him about it. I was like, "What are you writing these songs for?" And immediately I got to the bottom of it. He felt that he needed to make something familiar for Soundgarden fans.
Okay.
And I was like, ultimately, that's great. Ultimately, this record is for you. This has to be for you. This has to be your expression. You can't think of what someone else you don't know is going to want. Forget that. They're listening to you. You know, the tail does not wag the dog here. You have to be the person who creates what people want to listen to. You already have an audience. Give them something that you do, that comes from you. And somehow I made sense of it to him. And I said, "What do you like?" And he said, "The Beatles and Cream." I just said to him, "Okay, well, write a song that sounds like the Beatles and Cream." So 3 weeks later, I get this demo with 4 songs on it. The first one is Fell on Black Days.
Okay.
From the first moment I heard it, I was like, "Oh, yeah, this is so good."
Yeah.
You know, it didn't occur to me for the longest time that a lot of what Chris wrote were essentially blues songs. Mm-hmm. It never really occurred to me. But he was able to transpose it into a whole different thing that was so personal and so him that you didn't really think of where it might have originated.
Right.
There are 2 other songs on the demo, one of which was Jerry Cantrell was playing, did a lead. It sounded great. It was kind of Hendrixy. Wasn't appropriate, but it was great. The third song was called Tighter and Tighter, wound up on their next record. I really wanted to do it on Superunknown, but fine. The last song, I started playing it from the very first notes. I was like, what the fuck is this? And I kept listening to it. And as a music producer, my job, I feel, is to listen not for the things that are good, but for the things that aren't working. Mm-hmm. So from that vantage point, you can imagine what kind of state of stress I was in at that point, because I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop and for this song to go way off the rails, because so far what I'm hearing is one of the best songs I've ever heard in my life. Right? So this thing, it's going on and on, into the verse. It's like, this is immaculate. He's going to fuck the chorus so bad, though. He's going to destroy it. I know it. I just have to prepare myself for this. He hits the chorus, and it's beautiful. And I'm like, I'm getting like these sensations in my body I've never felt before. Like, it's taking me to all these like crazy places. I feel like I'm hallucinating. And all of a sudden, I've listened to this song 15 times in a row. And I'm like, I call him up. Like, I kept calling all his numbers until finally I reach him. He's like, yeah. And I'm like, you're a fucking genius. And he's like, really? Why? I'm like, that song. He's like, what song? I'm like, Black Hole Sun. And he's like, oh, you like it? And I was like it? I was like, we're ready to make a record. Like, I was waiting for that song to come.
I'd like to take a second to talk to you about this channel. This is actually Rick Beato 2. I've had it since the beginning of my main channel, and many of you are not subscribed. As a matter of fact, 87% of the people that watch this channel regularly are not subscribed. So I encourage you to hit the subscribe button on this channel and on my main channel. This will help me get even more of my dream guests and help continue to grow both channels. Thank you.
But with Black Hole Sun, specifically in Soundgarden, I just recorded it in my basement. It's like a bad recording. I played drums, played all the instruments, but it's basically what was on the record, just a bad version of it, and me playing it all, and then give them the tape, and they literally can listen to it and say, thumbs up, thumbs down. And that's kind of where we were at, was if you like it, we'll do it. If you don't, we won't.
There's so many signature fills. There's so many signature sounds. The snare sound, like on Black Hole Sun, for example.
Right.
I mean, it really holds up to 30 years later.
Yeah.
The thing is so hi-fi sounding. The whole record is like that.
Yeah.
What snare drums were you playing during that time period? Keplinger snares, right?
Oh, for that particular song, I was playing a Keplinger snare, which I think it's one
is
of
it over
these,
here, maybe?
It is
or
not
something?
one of those ones. Do you
Okay.
want, I think I see it. Do you want me to grab it?
Yeah.
I use the Keplingers.
That thing looks like it weighs a ton, does it?
It does weigh a ton.
I mean, it really looks... That's a 7, isn't it?
7, yeah.
Yeah.
But this is my Black Hole Sun snare. Mailman. Like, I use this a lot on Superunknown. And I didn't really use it on tour. It didn't really...
Is it because it's a 7 that it's hard, that you feel when you're playing it, it's more difficult to hear?
Yeah, I think it was more inconsistent live, like, through the PA and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, it worked great through a microphone, but sometimes... So it's got that kind of long note thing.
Sounds killer. I love 7-inch deep snares. They sound so fat. It's got the great bottom end.
It's tuned a little low. I mean, it would have been tuned up. The bottom would have been tuned up, but that's just off the shelf there. But yeah, that's the Black Hole Sun snare drum right there.
First of all, mixing Superunknown, and I'd like to ask you about, first of all, how you got involved with that record, and tell me about your experiences with it.
I got involved. I'm sure it was through, knowing the Pearl Jam guys, and things were heating up a little bit, so people kind of knew what I was doing a bit. I mixed a couple other records around that time. I mixed an Aerosmith record that was doing well, and most stuff I've mixed, so people were kind of knowing about that a little bit. But I think it was really mainly through the Pearl Jam guys, and I don't know if I was up there working anyway, but I don't think so. Maybe I just might have just gone up there while they were recording. And I met everybody the first time. I don't think I met Christopher or anybody, or Matt or anybody. They played me some stuff at the studio, and it sounded a little, not crazy, but it was kind of like a big ball of sound, you know. And I remember thinking, well, there's, I think it sounds good. I just couldn't really tell, and they were playing it really loud, and so I was like, okay, yeah, sure. And so then we went to, I think it was that trip. I think we all went to dinner to talk about the mixing process or whatever. And we all sat down. We nice, good guys and stuff, and we all sat down. It was us, and I think their manager at the time, Susan Silver, was there. And I just said, hey, I don't know what we're going to talk about. I mean, we just pull it up and make it sound good, and that's it. I don't know how to talk about it. I mean, we're kind of done now, right? I mean, we had just sat down, and it's like, okay, yeah.
That's
And
it.
then it was just shooting the shit for the next hour and a half. So, that was kind of, I said, I don't, we're going to mix it. I don't, so I remember before they were still working on it, and I was back in Atlanta working on some stuff. And I called Chris at one point and just check on, when they wanted me to come. I was supposed to come like the next week or something. And he said, this is like, probably noon, maybe 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon my time. And he said, yeah, we're comping a vocal. I'll call you when we're done. And I kind of forgot about it. About 6 or 7 o'clock that time, that might like way later. I said, I forgot to call him. So I call him. Hey, I forgot to call you back because he was like, no, we're still comping here. I said, dude, you can sing, right? You're like a good singer. What are you guys doing up there? I was just giving him shit. He was already laughing. I think he started realizing, he goes, I think we're kind of in the weeds a little bit, but we're getting it done. I don't know if everybody does this, but I sure do. I asked the assistant, what's the shortest song? What's the quickest? What's the easiest? What's done? And there was a song called, I think it was called Kickstand.
Oh, yeah.
And that song maybe 2.5 minutes long. And I pulled that up, and it sounded great. And it sounded great pretty fast. And I think I was finished mixing in 2 or 3 hours and kind of done. And everybody listened. That sounds great.
What about songs like Fell on Black Days? That has great tones on it, incredibly good tones on it. Now, was that an easy song to mix?
They were all fairly easy to mix. I mean, I do know when I got there, I was mixing the first thing, and I started seeing the other track sheets. And this is early in my sort of career, so I didn't know about stuff like, organizing other people's records and things. Like right. I grew up in the business, organizing everything really spot on. And even right before this, I'd done a remix with Rick of a Queen song that it was whatever that was, it was fine. But we did have all the tapes there, had all the masters, the Queen masters there, and Rick and I, we just listened to a bunch of songs, and you could literally just kind of pull them up, and there were moves, but they kind of just worked. And I'm like, oh, it was just inspiring how those were so organized, and just on that level, like you didn't have to guess what was going to happen. You just had to make it sound great. So I remember asking the producer and the I don't know who, I said, you guys have to organize this for me. I can't. And the idea was, well, you just kind of make some choices here, choices there. These are not my choices to make, and we don't have that kind of time. And we're doing laundry for the next 3 weeks, if that's basically what we're doing here. I'm cleaning shit, whatever. But so he stayed a couple of days. I don't know that he was thrilled about that, but he was a pro about it. Did a great job. Put it all together, comped everything, organized it all. And so by the time we started mixing, it started going, pretty quickly. But like Fell on like Black Days, that song just kind of sounded like that. You had kind of made some. I do remember early going into it, I remember thinking, that Matt's a really great drummer, and he's got a really great thing going on. And I really liked the album before, which was
Bad Motorfinger.
Yeah, Bad Motorfinger. Loved it. It was just so weird sounding. The drums are it's just weird, super weird. Like how does that happen? I honestly didn't know how they made it sound that way, which I kind of dig. That was a one-time thing. I felt like to me. I felt like it needed to sound more like him, and I felt like I just making the drums or whatever the tracks sound more like what they sounded like. It was, this wasn't like a just really there was pull the faders up, throw get it balanced out, and make some moves, and that was it.